Imagine you're standing inside the largest stadium on Earth. Around you, nearly 200,000 people are celebrating. The newspapers have already printed victory headlines. Government officials are preparing speeches. The players are being treated like world champions. There's just one small problem. The game isn't over yet. What happened next became one of the biggest shocks in sports history. A moment so devastating that an entire country would remember it for generations. This is the story of the 1950 World Cup, the day Brazil cried. To understand what happened that day, you need to understand what Brazil represented in 1950. The Second World War had ended only 5 years earlier. The World Cup had been suspended for 12 years. When FIFA announced the tournament would return, Brazil wanted to make a statement. The country wasn't just hosting a football tournament. It was introducing itself to the world. Brazil was growing rapidly. Its leaders wanted to prove that the nation belonged among the great powers of the modern era. And they had the perfect stage. The Maracanã Stadium. At the time, it was the largest football stadium ever built. A giant concrete monument capable of holding almost 200,000 spectators. Nothing like it existed anywhere else on Earth. To many Brazilians, the Maracanã wasn't just a stadium. It was proof that Brazil's future had arrived. And there was one more reason for confidence. The national team looked unstoppable. In the final stage of the tournament, Brazil destroyed Sweden 7-1. Then they crushed Spain 6-1. The team played beautiful attacking football. Goals seemed to come effortlessly. Fans weren't asking if Brazil would become world champion. They were asking by how many goals they would win. The final match would be played against neighboring Uruguay. On paper, it looked simple. Brazil only needed a draw. Uruguay needed a victory. The odds couldn't have been more favorable. Confidence spread across the entire country. Newspapers published articles celebrating the future champions. Businesses prepared victory promotions. Songs were written. Speeches were planned. Some newspapers even printed headlines announcing Brazil as world champion before kickoff. Think about that for a second. The trophy had not been won. Yet millions already believed the outcome was certain. Meanwhile, Uruguay arrived quietly. A small nation with a population far smaller than Brazil's. Few people outside their own dressing room believed they had a chance. But inside that locker room, something different was happening. They believed. On July 16, 1950, the Maracana filled beyond imagination. More than 170,000 official spectators. Some estimates placed the crowd close to 200,000. To this day, it remains one of the largest attendances in football history. When the match started, Brazil attacked immediately. The crowd expected goals. The crowd expected domination. The crowd expected history. But Uruguay refused to cooperate. They defended with discipline. They fought for every ball. They slowed the game whenever possible. And little by little, the pressure inside the stadium began to grow. The first half ended scoreless. Still, nobody panicked. Brazil only needed a draw. Everything remained under control. Or so it seemed. Early in the second half, Brazil finally broke through. Friaca scored. Brazil won. Uruguay 0. The Maracana exploded. People screamed. People cried. People hugged strangers. The World Cup was theirs. At least that's what everyone believed. But Uruguay's captain, Obdulio Varela, had no intention of surrendering. He gathered his teammates. He told them to ignore the crowd, ignore the noise, ignore the pressure, and keep fighting. Those words changed everything. In the 66th minute, Uruguay struck back. Juan Schiaffino scored. 1-1. Suddenly, something changed. Brazil still held a result they needed, but confidence began turning into anxiety. The crowd grew quieter. The players became nervous. And then came the moment that would live forever. The 79th minute, Uruguayan winger Alcides Gudja attacked down the right side. Brazil's goalkeeper moved, expecting a cross. Instead, Gudja shot. The ball slipped past him, and into the net. Uruguay 2. Brazil 1. For a few seconds, nobody understood what had happened. The impossible had just become reality. Writers who attended the match described what happened next as one of the strangest moments in sport history. Silence, not disappointment, not anger. Silence. Nearly 200,000 people. Silent. Some fans cried. Others stared into space. Many simply couldn't process what they had witnessed. Brazil attacked desperately in the final minutes, but the equalizer never came. The referee blew the final whistle. Uruguay had won the World Cup, against all odds, inside Brazil, inside the Maracanã, in front of the largest crowd football had ever seen. For Uruguay, it became the greatest sporting achievement in national history, a victory still celebrated more than 70 years later. For Brazil, it became something else, a wound, a national trauma. The defeat became known as the Maracanazo, the blow of the Maracanã. The famous white Brazilian jersey was retired. Years later, Brazil adopted the yellow shirt that would become iconic around the world. Several players were blamed for the defeat, none more than goalkeeper Barbosa. For decades, he carried the weight of that single moment. Many Brazilians treated him as the symbol of the loss. Long after the match had ended, long after the crowd had gone home, long after the tournament was forgotten, the pain remained. The story of the 1950 World Cup isn't really about football. It's about certainty, about believing victory is guaranteed, about discovering that history doesn't care about expectations. Brazil had the better team, the bigger stadium, the bigger crowd, the bigger dream. Uruguay had belief, and sometimes belief is enough. For Uruguay, it was the greatest day in football history. For Brazil, it became a scar carried for generations. And that's why, even today, people still remember July 16, 1950, as the day Brazil cried.